the the subtitles. So the exam will become available to you at 9 a.m. and it will close at 4 p.m. So you have that entire time during which you're free to work on the exam. I'll be here in this classroom during the normal hours of class, so from 2:20 to 4 o'clock, in case you have questions. Looks good, Henry. Fat-free, low fat, or regular?
It's low fat.
Ugh. Come on, life's too short for low-fat milk.
I mean, I agree that luckily it's not mine. I'm just holding on to it for someone.
Okay. Well, keep it warm, okay?
I'll put it in the sun.
Yep. In case you have questions about the questions, I'll be here from 2:20 to 4 p.m. Our same link, by the way, is this. It's the same link as the one for the 9:50 a.m. class, and I'll be present at the 9:50 a.m. class to answer questions about questions. So if you prefer to work in the morning, you have a question about the exam, you can come visit me on this Zoom link earlier in the day. Otherwise, attendance is optional, okay? So you can do the work wherever it is that you do your best work. If it's in the shower, then I hope you have a waterproof computer. So with that said, I'd like to show you some questions. So the questions will be coming directly from zyBooks. I have to painstakingly transcribe them character by character into Schoology because the automatic transfer questions that's supposed to work doesn't. So it will take you far less time to do the exam than it will be for me to enter it. But hey, it just sucks to be me. What can I say? So let me show you some samples so you know what to expect. And to do that, let me fire up, not Schoology, but zyBooks itself. Let me just log in. And now I am not accustomed to teaching sitting down. I just can't do it. All right, so let me show you what it's like. Okay, so if I go to the tests panel, and so that's the book, but if I start making a test, the test is called Foo, and now I can select questions. So what's going to be on the test? Well, certainly any of the chapters that we have already been assigned. So 1 through 5 have already been assigned. 6 is assigned. It's still due next week. But we've done a lot of the things from 7. We've done a lot of the things from 8. So 7 and 8 will also be on the test. Okay. We have done exceptions, but I don't think we've done enough exceptions. So exceptions will not be on the test. Now, let's see. Comma separated values. So that will be on the test. Let's take a look at those questions. I'm just picking at random. So which code opens a CSV file with a semicolon as a delimiter? So the idea of comma separated values, you can replace that comma with any other character. In this case, semicolons. And you can see that it's delimiter equals semicolon. Okay, so A is wrong because you're supposed to give it a file, an already open file rather than the file name. Okay, C is wrong because that's not a semicolon, and D is just really wrong. It doesn't have anything having to do with the semicolon. So let's go to a chapter that we're more familiar with. How about code blocks and indentation? So here's a sample. Which is true of the badly formatted code? So if you look here, C is the answer, as you see the green check mark. Amazingly enough, your version of the test will not have the green check marks. Don't know why. The reason why C is the answer is it's preceded by an if, and you have to do an indentation after the to be in the code body of an if statement. Okay. I will in general try to avoid questions that are hard to read on the computer. So for instance, let's take this one. Excess indentation must be removed from which lines in order to make the code correct? Oh, okay, this isn't as bad as I thought. Line 4 is obviously not indented properly. But if perhaps they showed the difference between having a space and not having a space, or for a space versus two spaces, I wouldn't include that kind of a question. Okay, does anybody have any questions about the format of the questions? Boy, okay, that was a shirt, Henry. I thought all I saw was a little black rectangle. Oh, you got one of those cool new, don't you feel that your tuition and room and board is well spent because they gave you a scarf?
Yeah, I feel like I'm really represented by the shirt.
Yeah, yeah, Henry, you're having way too much fun there. Okay, not allowed to have fun in class. All right. So any questions about the nature of the questions?
I did have one. Is it just, are they all going to be multiple choice?
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
yeah. Yeah, so have no fear. You won't have to write code under the pressure of exam settings.
25% chance to get it right.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? All right, well, then the, forgive me, hold on. You got a scarf, but I got a cup.
You may have said this, but how long is the test? Like how many questions?
821. Does that seem right? Yeah. No, the number of questions, I haven't decided, but I'm leaning towards 40. So you've got, if you only use the 100 minutes, that's 2.5 minutes per question. But if you use bits and parts of the whole day, that's, that's a very long time per question. So let's call it 40. All right, other questions? Okay, let's get down to the nuts and bolts of the review. What would you like to review?
You talked about string formatting. I still don't understand how that works. I mean, I understand what it does, but I don't understand what each part of it does.
Okay. To do that, I'm going to fire up Replit. And then switch to it in a moment. First, I have to log in, apparently. All right. And I'll switch to that. Okay. Oh, this is an interesting one. Let's see if it works. Because I haven't, have I tried this on Replit? Probably. Yeah, let's just see what happens. Dump. Since it's here. All right, it's taking too long. All right, so stop. All right. So let's create a new file. And I am going to zoom in a little bit to make it a little easier for you to see at home. Okay, so formatting. Well, first, of course, you can use the print statement without formatting, but your question is about formatting. So the idea is that you would have some string, then dot format, and then parentheses. Now, what goes in there is either plain text or also some placeholders. And for each placeholder you have, you can choose something to print through it. So let's say 3.14. Let's see what that does. Let's see, is this going to do the right thing? No. Okay, so let's, of course, Zoom is in the, oh, well, it actually did work. That's the other program. We'll be getting to stuff like this towards the end of the term. But this is great. Now, how do I close it? Okay, I guess I closed it. So Python, formatting. Okay, does anybody know why didn't it print anything?
You didn't put a print function.
Right, I didn't tell it to. You know, it's as simple as that. But that does demonstrate that formatting returns a value. So normally when you surround it with a print statement, you don't really think about it as having returned a value, but indeed you are actually returning a value. So let's say string equals that, and then you can say print the string. Okay, and geez, go away. All right, you can turn crap like that off, by the way, from the settings. You can go to code intelligence disabled, and that way it won't keep taking up all of your eyesight. Okay, so we've got, we'll put back a print just to make it shorter. And within each placeholder, so brace, brace, open brace, close brace, that says it's a placeholder. You can specify various things, and those various things are divided by a colon. So on the left-hand side of the colon, you can say some types of things, and on the right-hand side of the colon, it would be other types of information. So let's talk first about the right-hand side of the colon. You can specify a width of the field. So let's say I want the field to be printed in 10 characters. So now you see that the 3.14 has been moved over. And if you include the 4 characters of 3.14, then there are 10 total, including the blanks from here. Okay, because of course we're getting 1 blank from here. Everybody see the little blue space? Okay. So if I wanted it to be left justified, then I'll put in a less than, and I'll put a period here outside the placeholder so you can see where the end of that string is. So you're looking at the period. So from here to here is going to be 10 characters. You can also do an equals sign. No, wait. Nope, sorry. You can do up a hat, and that will center it in 10 spaces. So there's a little some spaces on the left and on the right. And of course, you can also right to justify it, but that's the default. Okay. Now, for certain types of data, you can specify more formatting information. Now, I know that this is a floating point number, so I'll say 10.2F that says treat it like a float. And that's going to give me actually nothing really different here. Because it already has just 2 decimal places. Okay, sorry. So let's say we decrease the number of decimal places. That will print 3.1. However, if this were a 5 or more, it would print 3.2. Whoops. Hello, did you see what I said there? Come on. Oh, I thought it was going to print 3.2. I wonder why it isn't. How about 9? That shouldn't be right. So let's see, when do you round? Oh, well, I guess it's 6 or greater. Shouldn't it be 5 or greater?
Yeah, usually it is.
5, 1, how's that? Okay, just as a guess, a gaff, let me put the 3.15 back. Huh. Okay, well, you learn something every day. So anyway, when you ask for a number of decimal places that is smaller than the value in the actual number, then it will do rounding, but apparently rounding in a strange way. Okay, now there's some other formatting capabilities. Let's say let's take a look at what happens on the left side of a colon. I'm just going to put a 0 in there, and I get the same result. Let me put in a second argument, and I'm just going to change that to a 1. I have 2 arguments, but only 1 placeholder. But I still get the second value because this is value 0 and this is value 1. And you can put a number here to specify which of the parameters you want to use. So for example, I can put in 0 colon there. And I've reversed the order. I've reversed the order without having to change the arguments. What? Come on, there we go. Now we can see it all. Now you can also give the parameters names. So you could say, for example, fizz. What's that program we wrote early on? Fizz. I can't believe. Buzz. Fizz buzz equals. And then over here, I'll say fizz buzz. So you can give arguments names and then call them out by name. Okay, so Michael, how you doing?
Yeah, that helps.
Has this helped?
Mhm.
Okay, is there another aspect of formatting, because this hasn't been all of them, that you want to discuss?
No, I was wondering about the like the fancy parentheses. I don't know what they're called. And
Braces,
like what?
brace.
The braces. I was
Yeah.
wondering about the braces and like what was going on inside of them and what that meant. And yeah. So
Okay,
thank you.
who's backing up? Okay. All right, so next question for review.
I was gonna ask, could we go over like the basic like lists functions again, like dot append and all that stuff? Because I know there are a ton of them. I don't really remember all of them.
Yeah, there are a lot of them. And hold on for a moment, and I have a resource that you could use that's sort of a cheat sheet. Oh, wait, I'm about to give you a cheat sheet for an exam that you're taking at home. Oh, what the hell? Here, hold on for a minute.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me go find it. Um, and copy the link. Let's go back to Zoom. And where's the chat? Okay, let's take a look at this. And here it comes. pythoncheatsheet.org. Let's take a look at
Very
that.
fitting. Very fitting.
Yep, yep. And let's take a look at it. Let me broadcast again. That is not the right icon. Share the screen. Okay, so it's one giant page. It just goes on and on and on. So let's go to lists. And rather than have explanation, they just show examples. So these examples are showing how to get access inside of a list by index. That's right here, giving it an index using brackets. You can use negative indexes, and that just counts from the rear forward. So that counts from right to left instead of left to right. Then some examples on slicing. And cool stuff about slicing is that you have a left-hand side of the colon and a right-hand side of the colon. If the left-hand side is left out, it says start at the beginning. If the right-hand side is left out, it says go to the end. You can use negative indexes to specify from positions from right to left instead of left to right. Okay, then you can get a list's length. You can change values. By the way, that's the big difference between tuple and list is a list you can change the values. All right, we used this once in our dice histogram where you can declare a list and it looks like a multiplication by a number, but that says repeat the list that many number of times. Okay, so del can remove an item from a list. You would give it which item you want to remove. Lists can be used with various looping constructs. For example, you've got this great feature called enumerate, which is like a range. So some variables in Python act like containers, including lists. So list is a container, a dictionary is a container, and you can use containers in for loops. Enumerate takes a list and returns one at a time 2 different values. And those values are the index into the list and the value found at that index. Excuse me. Forgive me, you don't need me coughing in your ears. We did not consider zip. You can zip two lists together and then enumerate the combination of the lists, but we have not talked about it. We can determine if something is in the list or not in the list. Oh, okay. We didn't discuss this, but yeah, you could assign all the members of a list or some members of the list in parallel to a number of variables. So cat is a list and fat will be assigned to size and orange will go into color and loud will go into disposition. We didn't look at that. That won't be on the test. Okay, but what about your actual question? So, okay, so here's index and append, insert, remove. So here's quite a few. But not all of them. Now we're into dictionaries. So that is it's a good cheat sheet. It's by no means complete. Comprehensions will make your head hurt. So I advise not looking at it. So yeah, it's an entirely different syntax. Very handy. And you know, this is list comprehension is a powerful tool utilized by the people who are just too cool to attend parties and do ordinary reindeer games. So that's for the really cool kids. Use list comprehension. Makes your head hurt. Don't look at it. That's my advice. So, but let's go back to Replit. And I'm going to remind you how to get some real-time information reminders. Okay, good. So if you want a reminder about what you can do with a list, you can always go into Python, run it interactively, and create a list. Let's say here's an empty list. And then use dir and give it the name of the variable. So what this is showing you are the different list operations that you could use. So here's append and clear, copy, count, extend, index, insert, pop, remove, reverse, and sort. And if you want some more information directly in Python without looking it up, you could say, for example, L dot dunder doc dunder. Let's see, is it like that? Yeah. So print L dot dunder doc dunder, and that's printed a little bit more nicer. But you can also, I believe, let's say append, try a function. No, that's not going to work, is it? Yeah, that's not going to work. Well, I didn't have a period, so I didn't give it a chance. Yeah, okay. So that it doesn't extend to the methods themselves. All right, so going back, I'll just type it in because I really hate these subtitles stuff. Maybe it's good for you. I mean, certainly it's going to be great for someone who prefers it, but all of my work is at the bottom of the window, and then that's where the closed captioning is. So I can't read what it is that I'm typing. So DIRL, are there any of these that you would like to talk about? So any of the append, clear, copy, count, extend, index, insert, pop, remove, reverse, or sort that you'd like to ask a question about?
No, not particularly. It's just in general. I just kind of forgot like all the, well, like what you could do, but looking at the cheat sheet in this, I pretty much know mostly what's going on, so it's good.
Okay, okay. And to make it official, you can use the cheat sheet during the exam. I can't stop you. Okay? All right, other questions?
I got one. What exactly were we supposed to do with the flashcards file that you gave us last time?
We'll finish it next week.
All right.
Yeah. But I did ask you to work on a problem with the flashcards program, and that is mode 1 differs from mode 2, from mode 3, only in the order that the questions are asked. You know, is the question column A and the answer column B? Or is the answer, the question column B and the answer is column A? Or is it randomly chosen, which is which? So the observation that I was making, I created the code for mode 1, but you know what? The code for mode 2 and mode 3 is almost identical. So what I asked you to work on is come up with a way that could, in a technical term, abstract as much code as possible so that you were able to handle mode 1, 2, and 3 with a minimum of duplication of code. Okay? Okay, questions for review?
Could we go over the nested loops from a couple weeks ago?
Sure, sure. So Maximus, what is it on your screen? I thought I spit on my laptop, but it turns out it's actually part of your image. What is that?
It's a really like shrunken part of a bowl of lemons.
Oh, yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Ah, obviously.
No, seriously, I thought maybe I sprayed, you know, on my screen. And when I moved the window, it moved with it. So obviously it wasn't my food. Okay. So the question is, question about nested loops. Okay. So, so nested loops is the definition of it is clearly a loop within a loop. And there's not really a limit on the number of nestings. I guess it's only up to certain practical limits and your patience. So very often you'll find one level of nesting, so a loop within one loop. But there's no reason it has to stop there. So think about nested loops as like the digits on your odometer, or perhaps the digits on a digital clock. So on an odometer, the single digits tick over very quickly compared to the tens digit, and the tens digit ticks over more slowly than the hundreds digit, and the hundreds is more ticks over more slowly than the thousands, etc. And that is what a nested loop is like. So you know what? Maybe here's a way of visualizing it in a way that we haven't done it before. So let's do this. So I'm going to make a list of values, and I'll put it first, second, and third. Okay. And using just this list, let's do a nested list example. So for outer in values, for inner in values, print outer, inner, inner. Okay? You ready? Let's try that. .py. Okay, so this is very strongly demonstrating that the inner loop iterates faster than the outer loop. So first, second, third, first, second, third, first, second, third. That has iterated completely 3 times, whereas the next most outer loop has iterated only once. So does this help?
Yeah, it does.
Good. Okay, other questions?
I was gonna ask, like, what's kind of the difference between a list and a dictionary again? Like a list, a dictionary, and a tuple. Like, why would you use one over the other?
That's a great question. Lists and tuples are very, very, very similar. And if you're writing production code, so code that has to be really, really fast, you would consider using tuples when you have what would ordinarily be a list, but you're not going to need to change any of the values in the list. You can use a tuple. So for instance, let's say I have, well, I still do have let me go back to the console. Yep. Okay. So LST is 1, 2, and 3. And this is what's in LST. Now let me make a tuple. Well, actually, I could use tuple. You know, that's a word in the United Kingdom. Do you know what that word means? Yeah, it's interesting. Tuple out of the list. And let's look at tup. Okay, so lists have the brackets and tuples have the parentheses. But let's see if we can see any difference here. So can I do this with a tuple? So that's with a list. Let's look at it with a tuple. And seriously, I cannot see what I'm doing. All right. So in that regard, they're the same. Can I do this with both? That's the same. Can I do this the same way? List sub 0 is equal to 19. Okay, what's the list have in it? 19, 2, and 3. What about the tuple? That I can't do. So there's the difference between tuples and lists. The benefit of a tuple, and the reason why I said what I said a few minutes ago, is that because tuples are designed to be read-only, they can be laid out internally in a way that is faster to access or faster to step through. So lists are more general, and for some operations can be slower and might actually consume a little more memory. So what I said earlier is if you were writing production code, then you'd think about using a tuple. And what I mean is if you want to wring every bit of performance that you can out of a list that you know you're not going to have to modify, then use a tuple. But on the other hand, if you're just writing code for class, writing informal, code that's not going to save a life or control the elevator ailerons in your airplane, then go ahead, just use only lists. Now, dictionaries are, as they say, a horse of a different color. So dictionaries are entirely different from lists and tuples in that dictionaries support random access. That's one difference. So to find a value in a list or a tuple, at worst case, you have to visit every single member of the list or tuple and compare it against the target that you're looking to find. So if your list was 1 million items long, you might have to loop through all 1 million items to find the one you're looking for. But a dictionary, on the other hand, is called associative. And what that means is finding a particular value in a dictionary always takes the same amount of time and is instantaneous. So the time it takes to find a particular key in a dictionary that has 1 million keys is 1 unit of time. The time that it takes to find a particular key in a 10 million item dictionary is 1. No matter how many items you have in the dictionary, the time that it takes to find 1 key is always 1 operation. Whereas a tuple or a list, you have to search, at worst case, every single item in the list or tuple. So another difference is, I was about to say key difference and I stopped myself, is that dictionaries have, per each item in the dictionary, it has 2 values. Well, that's not a good way of saying it. There's 2 sets of data associated with every item in a dictionary, and that would be the key and the value. So keys are what you can search on, and the values are what you get when you access a particular key. So for instance, I'll use the console dictionary, an empty one set up like that. And you can say a dictionary set up with at least 1 item in it would be, here's a key and a colon and a value. And let's put in another one. So okay, so this dictionary has 2 items in it. The first item is a mapping of the word key to the number 99. The second item is a mapping of the word orange to the word yummy. Now, the type of the key and the type of the value can be different, even within the same dictionary. Okay, so to add something to a dictionary, I'll want to demonstrate that the types can be different even within the same dictionary. Okay, now what's in the dictionary? So keys are key, orange, and 99. The values are 99, orange, and true. So here's the dictionary dot keys with parentheses. Those are the keys, and here are the values. So when you are thinking about something that you need to look up values in, then think dictionary or set. A set is very similar to dictionary, except that a set only has keys and no values. I could make a snide political comment, but I'm not going to, about not having any values, but I'm not going to do it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, including the snarky comments? Yeah.
No, just everything. It was nice. Thank you. I was just a little confused as to when you would use all the like the different lists and whatnot, but now it makes more sense.
Right, yeah. Okay, I'm glad that helped. Next question, please.
So you said a set has only keys, right?
Correct.
So when would you use a set if it only has the keys?
Well, the answer to that question that comes to my mind is readily is some algorithms that, like for instance, an algorithm that computes the shortest path through a network uh, depends upon sets rather than something like a dictionary, because all it needs to do is remember what it has dealt with in the past. So, for example, if the only thing you need to know is whether or not you've traveled through a particular node, then you can keep a set named nodes I have visited, visited nodes. And the only thing that's important is a particular node in the set or not? I wish I could come up with what would be a more ordinary day-to-day example. Oh, here we go. I thought of it. So imagine any situation in where you have a checklist. So did you pack your toothbrush? And if yes, toothbrush is in the set of packed things. There we go. Compared to toothpaste, let's say toothpaste, you only care, did you pack toothpaste or not, but not which flavor of toothpaste. So is it spearmint? Don't care. Is it mint? Don't care. Is it orange? Don't care. I just want to know that I packed toothpaste. Henry, does that work for you?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Good. Okay, more questions for review? Can you hear my furnace kicking in? Okay, good. Yes, I can put on headphones so that you don't hear it. Questions?
Well, I guess I had another question on maybe like a while loop or something. So I was doing chapter 5 the other day, and one of the challenge problems at the very end was kind of very confusing, and I didn't really know how to do it. So maybe we could like go over that specific problem or something, that while loop
Yeah, I'd love to.
in Zybooks.
Okay, let me go find Zybooks. Here it is. And I'm still
Yeah, so
broadcasting, so you can see
it's
it.
5.11.1. So it'll be chapter 5.
Okay, so 5.11.
Yep.
Oh, the loop else. Okay,
Yeah,
we didn't cover it, but all right. Which one? The challenge?
the challenge problem, yeah, at the very bottom. I was a
Okay.
little confused with this.
Yeah, this confuses me too because what's it asking?
It's just asking for the program's output, which is hard because like it's a really weird output, and it's like
Okay, all right. Okay. All right, yeah, so I got it. So what the else portion is, this, there are so many beautiful constructions in Python. This is not one of them. This word else sort of like just got jammed up the backside of a while loop. So the way that an else works with a while is if you've gotten all the way through a while loop, it will execute the else. But if for some reason you did not get all the way through, if you, let's say, did a break, then it won't. So yeah, I mean, this really looks like a contrivance. This is not elegant. I don't care what the Pythonistas say.
yeah, it was just a lot to look at.
Yeah. Yeah. Won't be on the test.
Okay.
There is another thing like this else that you'll find with the try except. And that would be the full form of the try except is try, except, and finally. So there's a third section to a try except. And the code in the finally block will be executed if there's an error or if there's not an error, right? So no matter what happens in the try block, the finally will be executed also. Right? But once again, exceptions will not be on the exam. Okay. More questions? All right. While you're thinking of questions, I'm going to send the other class, the whole class actually, the cheat sheet because I forgot to mention it in the AM class. So let me go ahead and do that. Oh, let me just do that again. There it is. Anytime you're ready with a question, I can pop back to you. Okay, so everyone in the room should just have gotten that email or is about to get the email. Okay, I'm back. So if you see me looking this way, it's because I have an absolutely horrible view of, so it's not just the people in the Tower of the Oaks who have a lake view. Can you see that? Or is it overexposed?
Yeah, no, you can see it. You can see it.
Yeah.
But,
Not a bad view when you're eating breakfast.
I do have one question.
Okay.
How exactly do you use the try function again? Like,
So a lot of things in Python can generate errors, which have the potential to cause your program to stop. And it's very ugly indeed. So when you encounter an error like that and your program stops, that would be a good time to consider whether or not you should use exceptions. So let's see, once again, Zoom is blocking my screen, so I have no idea what I'm looking at. Let's get rid of that so I can see. So let's see what happens when you do 1 divided by 0. That's everybody's favorite, isn't it? Let's see, Python formatting.py. That causes me to have an error. Let's put it in the form of a program. So how about value equals float input, enter a number. And then we'll say the inverse of that number is, and it'll be 1.0 divided by value. Okay, so let's try that program. Enter a number, 10. Okay, that works. Enter a number, 0. Ugh. If only there was some way of protecting myself and the user, of course, against errors that can cause crashes. I know there is. That's the try and accept. So try, what would you like to try? Well, the portion of the code that might generate an error. So you could put line 3 inside the try or not, doesn't matter. But the portion of the code that can cause an error goes inside the try block. And except is where you can handle the error, sorry. And that might be something like okay. So if this, this will now sit there in the background. And if I put in a number that is not 0 or doesn't cause the error, then I'll never see that except code. But if I do cause an error, I gracefully catch it. So that's the concept. Does that help, Santana?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's sort of like a failsafe.
Yeah, yeah. A way of detecting errors before they cause damage, and then having the opportunity to handle the error gracefully. Now, this is only one form of the accept. I can specialize the handling of errors by specifying which error it is that I want to handle. So this particular program should operate the same way. But if I got an error which was not the zero division error, then I would still crash. So let's demonstrate that. F equals open of a file that does not exist. So let's run that. So here's a good number, and I still have a crash because it's a different error, not handled by zero division. Okay, so you can have multiple accepts. Okay. Give me a break. Wow. Okay. So here. There. So multiple errors can be handled. Okay. Other questions, please.
This is about the code that you just wrote. Would it also give you an error if instead of entering a number, you entered in a word?
Yeah, let's try that. Let's see what happens. That's a good question. I was thinking the very same thing. Oh, value error. Okay, let's handle that. Well, I'll tell you what, let's just not specify. So here's my third except, and that's going to catch any other error that I haven't already specified. Okay. Let's try that. That didn't work. Why not? Okay, well, make believe I didn't say that. I really expected that to work. I wonder if I did something wrong. So I'll put that in though. So here's the value error. That was supposed to catch everything. Sorry about that. That's what happens when you play. Oh, it's still happening. Oh, so I'm getting one of those weird replit problems where it's not recognizing that I changed the source code. Try that again. Come on, seriously, I'm saving the file. I think this is a replit problem, and it's not recognizing that I changed the file. So I'll put something in so I could recognize. Yeah, that's the newest code. Huh. I'm confused. That should have worked. Oh, duh. It's because line 2 isn't inside the try. Duh. Okay, now let's try it. All right. And now let me put it back the way I intended it to work. Catch all the other errors. There we go. So I had it right the first time, except actually the program was doing exactly what I told it to do, because I told it that the conversion to float wasn't part of the try block, and that was my mistake. Okay, did that work for, I think it was Michael who asked that? Okay, other questions?
I had one. So for like the int function, which is like the math one, and then the float function, if you just use the float function, how many like decimal places is it gonna end up printing?
Oh, by default, if you print a float, you'll get as many as necessary.
Okay, all right.
But if your question is the maximum number of decimal places of accuracy, for Python, I'd have to look that up for you.
No, I mean that's not my question, but yeah. Okay, I was just wondering that just for the float and whatnot, between the float and the int.
Yeah. So by the way, if you're familiar with scientific notation,
Yeah.
that is how floating point numbers are stored in computers.
Oh, okay.
But rather than exponents of the base of 10, the exponents are the base of 2.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank
So,
you.
yeah, so single precision has 2 to the 8th power of exponents. So an exponent of negative 127 to positive 127, thereabout. So 2 to the 127th power is a really, really, really big number. It's almost 127, not quite. I'm so glad my dogs are downstairs. They don't see the mailman. They literally would chase the mailman. Mail person, letter carrier. Yeah. Questions? They saw the letter carrier. But fortunately, my dogs come with a remote control. So there, I turned off the bark. Hey, tell you what, look through the cheat sheet right now, if you still have that link, and see if there's something there that confuses you that we've covered.
I got a theoretical question about some stuff that we did beforehand. So on my off time, I've been like messing around with like the D&D generators and stuff, and I started working on one for name generator, which, oh my god, that is so confusing. Trying to make sure that it doesn't come out as XXXX or something. And part of it was like I like hit a snag for a bit on like if I wanted a certain like list of input to be like what would come through, like if the input was if they said A, E, F, and G, how would I make it so that like it would read that the input equals A, E, F, or G, and it would give a different like outcome for that instead of like a different input?
I don't follow. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that sounds like my parents. Hang on. So like if I put in A, oh crap. If I put A as the input, like just as a prompt, like A, a certain like text would show up and like a line of code would happen. But if I put B as the input, a different line would happen.
Well, that sounds like if else.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that.
You're quite welcome. I'll send you a bill. Oh,
Yeah.
wait, you're at Carthage. You already got my bill.
Are we gonna need to know any of the like the import math stuff? So like math dot, like any of that stuff?
No, no,
No? Okay.
no. This isn't a math course. I suppose mod would not be unreasonable to ask a question about since we've used it so much. Anybody have any questions? Well, I will be in class, as I mentioned, at the normal time. Attendance is optional. I'll be here in case you have any questions about the questions. And I wouldn't sweat it. There'll be 40 questions on the exam, and you have from 9 until 4 p.m. to work on them. And of course, you can look things up at home because you're on your own computers. What I would ask you not to do is to ask other people for what the answer is. That would be a bridge too far. Hey, the sun is out. Go out, and it's not terribly cold. Go out and enjoy yourself. Do something fun. Okay? Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thanks,
Have a good
Professor.
one.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.